Hi guys, Bob here from the Bob and Ramon Show. Very privileged to be visiting a friend of mine who runs this studio, and we've got a fairly local gentleman with us to show us some fairly amazing guitars. I'll run through those in a second. By way of introduction, however, a few things. First of all, this is my guest, who I will introduce, and me. You'll notice there's no Ramon. Ramon is behind the camera today. That's because Ramon's in the doghouse. Ramon's in the doghouse because the last video we did with Darren Horton of Daniel's Guitars elicited a small amount of adverse comment. And I'm a sensitive, retiring soul, and I was quite stunned by some of that comment, especially because I thought, actually, they really had a point. So one gentleman expressed himself in a rather vituperative manner, which I don't think we appreciated, but a couple of other guys were much more measured in their comment. And they suggested that we did talk a little bit too much over Darren. And looking back on the video, which I edited, I think they're right. So Ramon is being punished by not being allowed to be in this video. However, I think I was as guilty as charged, and I'm not being punished, but I am going to try and do a lot more interacting and listening today. See how you think, okay? So here we go. I'd like to introduce this gentleman who I've known on the phone for some time, but I've only just met about an hour ago myself. This is Tim. Tim, maybe the best thing to do is for you to kind of introduce yourself and just a quick background and bio rather than me trying to do a public history.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Well, I'm a Canadian guitarist, but I live and work in England, and I have done so for 40 years. And I came here to study in 1978, and I loved it. And somebody at the college I was at, the Royal Academy of Music, said, well, if you can hack it here, you can stay, and if you're not, you can go home. So they let me stay, so I presume I was okay for a bit. And then I went in two directions. I went into education very strongly when I graduated, and I became guitar organizer for the late Inner London Education Authority. And that was a wonderful thing for me because it put me in direct contact with a huge circle of guitarists. And my job was to put them in schools, teaching, and also fit them up with guitars. So I was like the Santa Claus of the guitar in London during the 1980s. And then the other direction is I went playing, but not solo. I concentrated on ensembles, and I joined with friends of mine from the Academy. I joined the English Guitar Quartet. They'd been running some years before, but they had a reshuffle, and I joined up playing octave bass classical guitar, which is really unusual. And
so what is that? Is that a classical guitar tune down an octave?
Well, it's built to be down an octave.
Right, so it's bigger?
Yeah. It's not. That's the thing. It's the bigger guitars. It's like a mariachi band. It goes boom, boom.
Okay.
And we just wanted a low-pitched classical guitar, kind of like if you think Fender Bass 6.
Right.
In the same way,
okay.
It's still a guitar.
Yes. Okay. But you are fundamentally and first and foremost, you're a classically trained musician.
Yeah.
So you can do the thing I can't. You can read the fly sheet.
I can read.
Probably sight read.
I can sight read. In fact, my first book was called Sight Reading for Guitar.
So, I mean, we have a grown-up musician. This is not amateur world. And your second book...
that's my fourth book.
This is your fourth book. Have a copy of this,
yeah,
which you can see there. So this is a proper guitarist who can do proper music and who can write about the stuff as well. So we're privileged. But our excuse for meeting today is that we both seem to have a particular penchant for Guild guitars. Tim is considerably further down that rabbit hole than I am. So we're going to talk through. I've brought a few. Tim's brought rather more than a few. And we're going to talk them through.
Nice.
Let's do a little G blues. Just a couple of rounds. Just
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
See, we haven't played together before. Not to worry, it'll only get better. Fantastic. And as you can see, proper guitar playing on the Bob and Ramon Show. Fantastic. So let's talk about the guitars.
Yeah,
now these are both yours.
Yeah.
So talk us through. We're going through in chronological order today. So this is the oldest?
That's right. Well, chronology for Guild starts in 1953. And there's lots of different angles and stories as to how the company formed. It was formed in New York, downtown New York, in an old factory that used to make leather goods. And the founder of the Guild company, Guild Corporation, was called Alfred Dronge. And he got some makers together, principally Italians actually, most of them Italian, Puerto Rican. He hired good skilled woodworkers from other industries, and started off with a few people in the top of an old factory in '53. And this guitar I'm playing is from that very first year. In fact, it's probably from the first couple of weeks, because this is guitar number 63.
Wow.
So the serial number is 10, which all guilds started 10, and then 1063. And it's had a bit of a life. It's been knocked about a bit, but it's a wonderful playing guitar, and it really shows how the company evolved, because that one that Bob has is from a couple of months down the line in 1954, and it's considerably more refined in its construction, more detail, things that you recognize that became Guild. So one of the things, of course, is the headstock.
Yes.
Yeah, and we've got the two earliest headstocks here. Mine has this one-piece pearl inset, which is very crudely done. It looks like somebody chiseling out of a piece of pearl. And Bob's guitar, well, this is my guitar as well, but it has the headstock that became associated with the company for the next few years, which is a very smooth lettering with a triangle underneath.
Yeah. Now, interestingly, you've also got this logo in the middle of the headstock on this one.
Yeah.
That one comes back all the way through Guild's history, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Well, this is the posher model. You see, it's blonde with a bound fingerboard.
Yeah.
Yours has no binding on the fingerboard. So this model in the first year of Guild's production wasn't really organized in levels, but this is an X330, which is one of those first year models that the X330 was blonde. And the X300 was sunburst. You know, that's the way they worked, but only for a short time.
It's not like Gibson. They weren't given those numbers because of the price points, were they?
No, I don't think so. They were. Although they're more likely to try and copy Gibson, is what they were doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 330. Have I heard those numbers before?
Absolutely. Although, no, hang on a minute. In 1953 they hadn't.
They hadn't in 1953.
Not until 58, 59.
There you go.
Hey, so. In terms of workmanship, craftsmanship, I've often felt that playing at Guild for Gibson, it always seems like Guild had to try a little harder. The craftsmanship is often, you pick it up and you go, wow, it somehow feels a little more handmade. Yeah?
Well, there were very few people involved, and the people that were there were mostly luthiers. And
highly qualified.
Yeah, and they were extremely skilled in woodworking and things like that, but it was the size, you know, they were very small. In the 50s, of course, Guild built some splendid instruments, but Gibson were at a high point as well.
Yes.
At that time.
Yeah.
See, I got into Guild a little bit later because I was a teenager in the late 60s in Vancouver, think Woodstock, West Coast, and everybody was playing Guild. And the reason was, of course, is that both of the G and the F, were making poor guitars at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's people just played Guild.
You see, over in UK, Guild have been coming over here for a long time, but they've never come over in the same abundance.
Yeah, right.
And so over here, it was kind of Gibson and Fender, and then all the British makes and a bit of Yamaha and all kinds of stuff. So Guilds there are some Guilds here, but they're not that common.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
You know, compared to America. Now, a few things about these guitars. These pickups, they're kind of P90 style pickups, single coils, made by France.
Yeah, these are both France pickups. They always fitted the blonde guitars with white covers, but they're basic, quite crude sort of single coils.
Yep.
But they have their own sound. You
Yes.
know, they're toppier than a P90. And Guild, bear in mind that the original Guild guitars, as you can see, are built for the jazz market in the 50s in New York. That was the big market. And so both of these are built for jazz players. And it's interesting, I think the toppy sound is because, you know, jazz was only just coming out of the real heavy hit rhythm stage.
Yeah.
And these guitars can do that.
And I was with a friend yesterday, he was telling me about the evolution of Gibsons, how if you play a Super 400 from 1934, it's really quite a soft, gentle guitar, and by 1937, 38, all the guys in the bands were kind of hitting the guitars like crazy to keep up with the saxes and stuff, and the guitars got much more robust and heavier and much harder feeling.
Yeah.
And these guitars, to me, I mean, I'm no jazz guitarist and player, but these feel still quite gentle and quite soft, and very tactile.
They're light and airy, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, when you play close voicings on these chords, they sound very, very transparent.
Yes.
That kind of sound.
Yeah. You can hear everything.
Yeah, more acoustic-y sounding, and they work really well for the Travis thing.
Oh.
They define the parts very, very clearly.
Just in case you're interested, so Tim is playing through a car Rambler, and I'm playing through a Polytune Mini Brute. They're both set on clean because most of the guitars today we're going to have on clean. But there you are. That's what we're playing through.
It's nice for me. It's rough for him. Sorry.
Hey,
I don't do clean. Ramon and I discuss pedals a lot, as you might imagine. And in fact, pedals for me are cars. Yeah, it's a bit of a difference.
One thing I was going to say about these Franz pickups before we move on is that I've got a couple of Franz pickups on my own. I bought my Guild, which we'll show later, because I'd heard that Larry Carlton used to use one for some recording, and when you put them through an amp with a little bit of breakup and drive, they really have a kind of zing about them. They're really good. If you stroke the strings, you kind of coax the distortion out of them. And these Franz pickups are great for that.
Yeah, right.
But they're pretty various. I mean, again, they're quite rare in this country. They don't age that well. So, I mean, these are in magnificent condition, but mine are a bit tattier.
Yeah.
The only other thing to comment for the geeks about amongst you is the knobs on these guitars. I think they're unique to Guilds. They're quite tall, quite dense, clear plastic. No numbers, no markings or anything. Again, the ones on my guitar have faded to a dirtier yellow, but they're the same kind of knobs. And I don't think you find them on many other makers and instruments. Guilds seem to make those for themselves. The other thing is that you've got clues and tuners on here.
I do on this one, yeah. Yeah.
And these look like they look a bit Waverley-ish, but they're probably not. But
yeah.
They're open gears.
Yeah, I should have looked up. I don't know.
Look, they're open gears. Both these guitars, they're in wonderful condition.
Interesting. You see, this was a deluxe model.
Yeah.
So that the extra binding, it's bound up front and back and things. Your bridge is rosewood.
Yes.
Mine is ebony.
Ebony.
So the ebony goes with the deluxe model.
Now you of course got the bespoke Guild tailpiece.
I don't think that's original.
Yeah.
I think it would have had one of these.
I think you might be right.
Yeah, that's my feeling. I've seen some pictures of other old Guilds, and I think that's been done. So this guitar was subject to a refinishing.
So at the end of the session, it's okay if I get my screwdriver and pliers out and just prise that off and stick that on my Aristocrat.
Yeah, perfect.
It's better than mine, no problem. Okay, I brought a crowbar for that purpose. So shall we? We've got a lot of guitars to do. So
how about a quick turn in A minor slow?
Okay.
So how about about this? Big Jungle Book.
We're back with two more amazing Guilds. I'm going to let Tim describe each one because he owns them and he's something of an expert in these things. So let's start. What am I holding?
You're holding a Starfire 2 from 1962, and what happened is the original thin-bodied archtop came in as a T100 in 1959, I think, possibly 58, and this is a 1960 T100. And then the T100 was kind of a budget line, so it's only single binding, and there's a few other sort of economy gestures on it. The Starfire was a step up a little bit like that. So you'll notice that the body shape on these is identical. So the Starfire evolved, I think, evolved out of
incredibly
the
comfortable
T100. Beautiful guitar to play. And you know, it was the T100 that did it originally for me. I went into a music shop in Vancouver in 1968. I was playing a really poor quality late 60s Gibson at the time. Just one of the ones that didn't work. And I played this Guild T100, and that was the beginning of my Guild affliction, 1968, but it took me a while to get my first one. So yeah, this is the comparison. I really wanted to show the difference, you know, between them. This particular T100 is almost mint. It's just immaculate, and so is the case with it, which is exciting. And it's got a few features that hark back to the older ones. So it's got the Franz pickups, but now you've got two of them. And you've got basic Brazilian rosewood fingerboard, of course, on both of these. And so the move to the Starfire was a bit of an upgrade because they put the Diarman Dynasonics done in the Guild white bobbins that they used. Apparently they originally did have the Gretsch style black, but then they quite rapidly changed to the white.
So I've only seen white on Guilds, and these white Dynasonics are Ramon's favourite pickups.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's it really, and I thought it was really interesting just to see the two guitars, to see how the T100 became the Starfire series. They continued to make T100s through the 60s, and but they became increasingly budget. You know, they used the little single coil pickup that everybody calls the Mickey Mouse pickup. But sometimes you see T100s with other pickups as well. Both T100s I've owned, and I had a blonde one as well, have had the white Franz pickups.
A little attention to detail. I went to see a collector friend of mine yesterday who had some amazing Epiphones, and they also had these little pin dots instead of those tangs like you get on a Gibson to mark where the setting is. And I haven't seen them on a Guild before.
Oh yeah, they're there all the time. Most of the guitars will have
because at that time, you know, late 50s, early 60s, and Epiphone had by then just sold into Gibson, but the craftsmanship at Guild and Epiphone was very kind of boutique, high-end Luthery heritage, wasn't it?
Well, it was also shared, because there's a strong story about Epiphone workers moving.
They migrated.
They migrated because they didn't want to leave Brooklyn, and Gibson. There were strong union problems happening at the time.
Right.
So there's a certain amount of migration between the companies. I'm not exactly sure on the chronology of it, but there was no doubt that Epiphone had an influence in early Guild.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, just while we're on these two guitars, we're going to keep moving pretty quickly because we've got a lot to cover, but I just want to talk about the finish of these guitars. So this is a Sunburst. As Tim says, it's in fantastic condition. It's pretty much mint. What's so interesting, which the camera is going to be hard pushed to pick up, is the exact colour of the dark brown or black. It's got a very definite kind of sepia, a slightly greenish hue to it, which adjacent to the red layer of the Sunburst, it means that the red layer is actually brown and the yellow layer is yellow. It's an unusual Sunburst. It's very, very beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
And it echoes something, again, I saw yesterday, some 30s Epiphone archtop acoustics, which were really sepia coffee coloured.
Right.
Totally different. There's an edge of that in there.
Yeah.
But segueing into this guitar, I mean, I've seen Starfires. We've seen them in red, we've seen them in blue, we've seen them in transparent black. Never seen a honey
honey amber, they call it.
Honey amber. Never seen one of these.
Well, no, I hadn't either.
And you say Hans Moos. Hans Moos is the author of the definitive book on Guild. I think he's based in Switzerland.
He's from the Netherlands.
Right. He's Dutch, but I think he's in Switzerland now. Right. And he's written the book on it, and he pretty much knows stuff about Guilds. And he said to you that he hadn't seen one either.
Well, it's in his book, actually. At the time he wrote the book, he said none of these have yet surfaced.
Right.
But they probably have by now. Okay. But it's nevertheless, the honey amber is a very rare colour, and it's a lovely thing because you've got sapele mahogany with the strong stripes, and we're quite used to seeing that with the cherry finish, but it's thrilling to see it with the honey amber.
It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And these guitars, there's something about them, they're extremely comfortable. The fact that there are no body cuts or anything, but they're arched both front and back, and they feel absolutely
fit
fantastic.
In there, isn't it? Well, that was the thing that did me back in 1968, you know. I played it, and I just remember playing the first chord and going, oh man, I really love this guitar.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. We haven't even tuned up, but I think we're in tune. playing this one just now felt really soft.
Yeah.
You know, again,
They act like acoustic guitars, don't they?
yeah, the viewers will show now I'm a
too.
bit of a snob about old wooden old guitars and stuff, but this is a classic case in point. This guitar feels old, it has a softness and delicateness. You know, in the hands of a real player, this would be astounding. Great.
So with the Starfires, they evolved quite quickly at initial release. This is a Starfire 2. The Starfire 1 would have been the same with one pickup. Starfire 3 was slightly more deluxe, usually with a Bigsby. And 2 pickups.
Right.
And then the Starfire 4 is the later double cutaway, which came in later. But the 1, 2, and the 3, all the same body superstructure, just different pickups and trim.
And the weight. It's just very comfortable.
Yeah, and all beautiful Brazilian boards.
Beautiful. Let's move on. Right, okay. So here we are again with 2 more amazing guilds. Now, in chronological order, which one is first? Yours is earlier, isn't it?
These are both guitars from 1963.
63.
Yeah, that's a year on from the T100 that I was playing in the last bit. So yeah, 1963. You see, and this is the start of the new period of guilds chasing the rock market, you know, and with a double cutaway like a 335.
Yeah.
And they took lots of the features from Gretsch guitars, you know. So again, the Dynasonic pickups have come in. This particular guitar was actually a signature model for the great British guitarist Bert Weedon.
Play in a Day.
Play in a Day.
Anybody of a certain age.
Everybody, because it sold 1 million copies, and in 1963 to sell 1 million copies was serious stuff. You know, even Keith Richards
He was sort of a bit like. Take this with a pinch of salt, guys. He was a bit like the Joe Bonamassa of his day. He was, because he was kind of really commercially savvy as a guitar player.
He was a very good businessman as well. But yeah, of course, his image was very 60s.
That's it. That's the pose.
So the Bert Weedon guitar was designed for the British market. In the States, it was built on the superstructure of the Starfire 5, in that it had a Guild Bigsby, and it had the double pickups. But most of the Starfire 5s didn't have the Diamond pickups. Most of them didn't have the super deluxe tuners on that. If you look at that, and on the back of those, flip those around, Bob, because the back of these tuners are all individually engraved. They're magnificent. And just coincidentally, my guitar, which is an A500, has the same tuners but in gold. So I thought these made a nice pair to contrast.
One thing, as a guild collector, you'll know something. My Aristocrat, the tuners are gold Clusons with little plastic buttons, and they weren't used on any other guitar ever. So if your tuners go on an Aristocrat, you are screwed. You're at the mercy of the vultures. But all of these tuners on guilds, they're pretty limited run stuff.
Pretty small. You see these for sale on eBay occasionally, individually. You know,
right.
If you've got a set that doesn't work, you're stuck.
Big money.
Yeah, that's right. But you can buy like one. You can buy the D string or something like that. Well, what good is that to you? And the great British luthier that did a lot of my restoration work, Martin Booth, he refretted that guitar for me when I first got it. This is my second guild that I bought, and I was terribly excited. And he refretted, did a gorgeous job refretting, because it was a one-owner guitar. It had come from a jazz player living in Leicester, and he'd played it from new. So when you take this, I can't convert this on film, unfortunately. When you take this out of the case, it smells like cigar smoke. And that's quite distinctive. I've never smoked in my life, so when I take it out, whoa! And it's like having something my mother owned, you know.
One of the guitars I'll pull out a bit later. It's got a little bit of its previous owner's cigar smoke.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, do you want to play it a bit?
Why not?
A minor.
A minor, if you like. We're going to let him solo next
Okay.
time because that's the meat of the sandwich. Right.
I really wanted to play rhythm on this guitar because the reason I could afford to buy this guitar was because it does have one extra addition. This is, by the way, a Guild A500. That's acoustic 500. They did an X500 as well, which was an electric, same body structure, but the electric one had double pickups, X500, and later became the X700 with a solid top. But this one, I'll tell you about the history of it in a sec, but it's got a Gibson patent number pickup on it, and that was cut in. Somebody obviously felt that the DeArmond pickup that was there originally wasn't good enough.
So that's a contemporary kind of mid-60s
pickup. A little bit later because the guitar is 63, you see.
Okay.
So, but here's the hole
Yeah.
for the tone control on the original DeArmond.
Yeah.
So that was there. Unfortunately, the DeArmond pickup wasn't with the guitar when I bought it.
And obviously these wouldn't have been there either.
No, they wouldn't have.
And indeed, these are Gibson reflectors.
Those are Gibson reflectors, that's right, exactly. So whoever did this wanted really to have a Gibson, but they'd had a Guild, so they fixed it. But luckily for me, that meant the guitar was affordable. The pickup is a Gibson patent number. Wes played those.
Yeah.
I can live with it.
Oh, yeah.
You know? Any pickup that's good enough for Wes is good enough for me.
A couple of other things going on here. First of all, you've got the same Guild harp style tailpiece, but this one is thicker and much more elaborate.
Yeah.
Much more ornate. I haven't seen one like that before.
Yeah. The
So
500 was the top of the
that's
line.
a high-end thing.
Yeah, it is.
And the other thing you might notice here is on the wooden bridge. This is by no means unique, but if you think about Gibson guitars around this time, 63, they were moving from stock tail bars to lightning bars, which were basically staggered, mainly because the plain G was coming into players' parlance as they bent notes more. And this is very, very radically stepped for intonation as a bridge, which again is kind of indicative of the period, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and it's significant that it's made in ebony as well.
Yeah.
Because as you went up the Guild line, the trimmings became more and more expensive. So, for example, the inlays on this are superb. It's a 5-piece neck with walnut stripes.
Look at the flames on this.
Yeah.
It's screaming.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful flame. And here for me is a really interesting thing. The width of this guitar is listed in the specs in Hans' book as 3.5 inches, or it might be 3 inches. This is 2 3/4 inches. So the only other guitar that Guild made that was an archtop at that depth was the Johnny Smith. Now, I think
that was also high in the range,
that was at the top of the range.
Top.
Yeah, and Johnny Smith, they called it the Johnny Smith Award.
Okay.
And there were only a few made. He didn't like them, so he went to Gibson, and they then transferred it to the Artist Award. But the very early Artist Award had this small body, and I know that because I've played a couple that Ivor Morantz had in his shop years ago when he was still alive. He's a great guy. And so this body, 2 3/4 inches. Where's that? It's got to be a Johnny Smith.
Okay.
So, but it doesn't say that in the official factory specs. Hans Moos, who wrote the book, said this is one of a run of 6 guitars that were made in 1963. So they probably had the bodies left over. They decided to convert them to high-end archtops, acoustic, which is what the A in the 500 stands for. So that's how this guitar, I think, came to be.
And it's got some other high-end appointments, like it's got the abalone flick inlays into the poli down the neck. It's got the not only is the neck band, but it's also got the binding inside the edges of the neck.
Yeah.
Again, these are all high-end.
Yeah, you've got to see that in close because it's so beautiful. So there's the double binding on the edge of the fingerboard, double white binding, and here's the abalone inserts, which become smaller as they go up the neck, all on an ebony board because this is a top-end model.
Now, while you're talking about the thickness of the guitar, I should say, for those of you that watch the show, you know that I bang on about Gibsons a lot because that's really my sort of stock in trade. If you look at Gibson 335s from 1958 through 1961, find 2 that are the same thickness.
All right.
The thickness of the edge varies considerably, and apparently almost at random. So when I play my friends, it's almost like this is almost home from home, but this is either a little bit thicker or a little bit thinner. It varies by 1/4 inch.
Gosh, I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Which indicates that back in those days, a lot of these instruments, with the amount of hand luthier intervention in these instruments is enormous.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of hand building going on.
Yeah, there is indeed.
This is long before the Norlins and CNIs of this world came in, and the accountants and the machinery.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Guild were bought by one of those companies later on as well.
Yeah.
One last thing on this guitar, you can see the cutaway is broader on the inlay for the solid top. That was the issue that caused Johnny Smith to leave, on how you built that cutaway.
Really?
Apparently, yeah. You can read about that story more than I do.
That must have been a bad lunch or a bad dinner.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Should we just play a little quiet stuff?
Okay.
So how about G major 7, F major 7?
Okay.
Just those two. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the sort of thing.
So here we are back again, this time with two amazing coloured guitars. I'm holding a Starfire 12 string, Starfire 12 in sapphire green.
I think, did they call it sapphire green? No, I don't think so. No, there was an emerald green.
Emerald green.
Emerald green, yeah.
I mean, it's the most amazing kind of bottle green colour, quite emeraldy. Again, slight sepia tint to it, but mainly green. It's the most beautiful finish. Front and back, absolutely beautiful. Wood showing through. And now, what kind of tuners are these?
They, around this time in the mid-60s, Guild started importing tuners from the Far East. And they're probably Japanese.
Okay.
But
open-backed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we see them on several guitars. So I have another guitar from 1966, which I couldn't fit in the car. I didn't have a big enough car to bring here. And it has the same, only it's not 12s, but same kind. And I replaced them with, but these ones work really well.
Now, this guitar, normally I have a devil of a shop with tuning my 12 strings. This guitar is straight out of Tim's car. And it's a hot sunny day today, the first hot sunny day we've had in England for the last 432 years. It's straight out the car, and I'll literally just play a riff because you can hear how the sound is, because this is it's a semi-acoustic, but it's got a block in it.
It does, yeah.
It has a centre block.
Yeah.
Two kind of mini humbuckers. They're not high power humbuckers, they're medium power humbuckers on a 12 string. So very different to a Rickenbacker or a Fender. And just. But
straight out of the box, though.
It has an amazing sound.
Yeah, I haven't tuned that guitar in
straight out of the box. And I imagine this through something like a Vox A230 would just be heaven.
Yeah, it has a wonderful sound. Yeah.
But interestingly, for a 12 string, it's still got a wooden bridge.
Who would think?
Who would think? And,
yeah.
You know, I mean, the truth is, it doesn't really matter whether it's wood or metal, because most manufacturers still put 12 strings over 6-string bridges, which meant the intonation, particularly on the low and high G string, is always like miles apart, which means if you're soloing on the guitar, get much above the 8th fret and you're horrific. It sounds ghastly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But what else to say about this? This was your first Guild?
It was my first Guild that I bought in the UK, yeah, and it's got the original case, and I was absolutely thrilled because of my previous affliction with Guild, and when I saw the green, I just couldn't resist. But I didn't realize quite how rare it was, the green, especially on the Starfire range.
Yeah.
And it looks incredibly beautiful. It's quite different than the Gretsch greens that you get, all the ones that are on the country club.
Yes.
But the main reason I bought it was just because I fell for the sound of those small humbuckers. They're similar to patent applied for. You know, they're knocking around 8.5. and a bit more on the bridge.
Okay. And tell me, are these the same kind of humbuckers as appeared on the guitars that Guild produced in the early 70s that looked a bit like Frankenstein SGs?
Oh yeah, the S100.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the ones you mean. Yeah, this Guild small humbucker was used right through the late 60s and the 70s,
Okay.
And then was replaced with the larger, in the mid 70s, was replaced with a larger Guild humbucker called the HB1. And the HB1 has become a really sought after pickup because it's again low output for a humbucker, but very, very beautiful range and definition.
Great.
And these pickups have that quality as well. They jangle a bit more.
Okay.
Than the HB ones, but they're very beautiful, and they're just the guitar is very musical to play. You know, when you play it and strumming it.
Yeah.
I remember taking it to get set up in Colchester, and my repairer said, "Oh, so you're going to be into some rhythm guitar, are you?" You know, I hadn't thought about that for years, you know, because I've been playing classical guitar, and I realized he was right, you know, and you're strumming these chords on this guitar, and it really works.
I mean, and it's beautifully ringing acoustically and everything. Aficionados of Yes will realise VUM. Thank you. That's my contribution to today. Fantastic. Now, the other reason we got these two guitars together is because this beautiful green colour contrasts spectacularly with this incredible orange.
Yeah, they call this Tennessee orange.
So, for obvious reasons, because it's almost like, you know, you squint and you're looking at a Gretsch.
Yeah.
So tell us about this. I mean, the pickups are unusual.
Yeah.
Metal bridge to go with the Bigsby.
The metal bridge is that's a Bigsby bridge.
And a Guild Bigsby.
Yeah. Hey Ramon, I'm going to give Ramon a chance to pay back and get back on screen. In the case, there's a couple of Dynasonics. Do you want to bring them in the other case? Yeah, there. Yeah. This guitar was originally fitted with reissued Dynasonics, the Dynasonic 2000s. And the guy who I bought this guitar from, thanks, man. There he is. We forgive him now. And notice, he didn't even talk about anything when he was doing that. So here's the Dynasonics that you would...
They're really thin.
Yeah, well, they're different as well, because the front one is thinner than the back one. To my cost, I found out when I tried to replace one once. But these ones, we're going to put them back on the guitar. The guy who used this guitar a lot in the state of Maine in the USA found a low frequency hum in these pickups, so we're going to work on that and see if we can get rid of it. But it's a beautiful guitar, and it just shows how Guild as a company were always responsive to market trends. They were small enough that they could move quickly.
Yeah.
This is a very low-end production guitar. Not very low number production guitar. It's not a low end. It's quite specialist, and it's called an X160. The X170 is a famous guitar that Guild built, which is a thin-bodied jazz guitar, a bit like a Birdland. The X160 has various incarnations, but this one is called an X160 Rockabilly, and there weren't very many of them made, and it's just a beautiful guitar to play. Unfortunately, this one's not quite in playing condition, so I won't do a lot of playing on it, but it because the bridge needs reworking on it. But it's got a real kind of rockabilly twang. That a lot, and that's even
really punches.
Yeah, with the humbuckers, it'll sound even more so with
and
the
what kind of humbuckers are these? I've never seen these before.
They've got 3 letters like GSR or something. It's an American brand that generic. You can buy them online, and they're very, very good. I apologize to the company. I don't know the name of your company. Actually.
We maybe look them up and put a super on.
Put
the other thing that's interesting about this guitar is it's obviously you've got a pickup switch and 2 pickups, but only one tone and volume to control both, which is an unusual configuration, particularly on a box.
Do you know what? I think it's a rockabilly thing. You know, who wants to fiddle around with the knobs? Right. It's like Eddie Van Halen's tone control. You know, one.
Absolutely.
That's it. Same sort of vibe. Simplicity is good.
Tell me the in-between position on this guitar, because I very often I like the glint you get. How's that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Pickup. In-between pickup. Yeah.
Quite parallel
Back
sound.
pickup. Oh, I can't play open strings on this. You can hear where that's going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a beautiful guitar.
Yeah.
And these are both from 60. No, they're
No,
different.
this is much later.
That-
We put this one in because I only had one 66 guitar with me today. I have another one, but I couldn't fit it in the car. So, but I wanted to show this one because of the superb color and also the fact that Guild were innovating right up until they finished the company. So this is only a couple of years before Fender moved them to California, and then the new era of Guild came. This is a Westerly guitar from Westerly, Rhode Island.
Right. Okay. Beautiful thing. Beautifully. And how much does it weigh?
Oh, lots.
It's a heavy guitar.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's heavy because it's meant to play loud.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's laminate all through.
Right. Laminated all through.
Yeah.
And is this completely hollow, or does it have a block?
No, this is completely hollow.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, that's just beautiful. So orange and green, and let's move on. Now we've got this is quite interesting because when Tim and I first came across each other, he said that he had a guitar that would really might interest me a lot because they were very unusual, which is a Guild Nightbird. And being the smart ass that I am, I responded, "Oh, I've got one of those," which he was pretty amazed about. So, just for the record, we've got each other's guitars. Okay, so I'm holding Tim's, he's holding mine. Mine is earlier. Mine's from the first run. It's called a Nightbird GG, and I think they reckon there were about 300 of them made, something like that. This is from the third flush. This is a Nightbird 2, and there's a Nightbird 1 in between, which I think has less fancy appointments.
I believe so, yeah.
But if you look at these two guitars, I mean, we just compared them for the first time. It's unlikely that a Nightbird will meet another one very often on this planet. And they're incredibly similar. This guitar, Tim's guitar, is unbelievably clean. For a
88, yeah.
1988, 1986.
Yeah, it's not got a mark on it.
It's insanely clean. It's brand new. Absolutely brand new. It's a remarkable guitar. And it's, as you can see, there's a lot of stuff going on in the wood here as well. This is a very, very fancy guitar. These all came with EMG pickups.
They did, yeah. Isn't it interesting? Because you just don't associate EMG with Guild at all. And yet, I find these pickups really articulate.
But me too. And also these guitars. I mean, the way I describe this black one is this is my Les Paul Custom, because I don't own a vintage Les Paul Custom, and I've never really wanted one, mainly because I can't stand the frets. So this is my Les Paul Custom. This guitar, they're quite jazzy. These guitars, and EMGs again. It's like jazz. No, wrong.
Yeah. Who would think? You just wouldn't guess it.
But the earliest of that, the first flash of guitars, came with Seymour Duncan humbuckers.
Oh, did they? Oh, right. Okay.
And then for a while you could order either EMGs or Seymours, and then apparently they just sort of flopped into EMGs. They obviously kept the EMGs because they liked them. That means that both these guitars have batteries inside them. They're active.
Which leads us to the battery cover case.
Indeed. They've got pickup, selector switch, volume, tone. There's a coil tap on the tone. I think it only taps this pickup.
I'm not sure. I haven't worked it out.
I haven't worked it out.
No.
And this, I think, is a phase, series parallel switch.
That is, yeah.
Which I never use either of those. And I don't know about you, but when I'm playing guitars, I particularly dislike. Because when you're gigging, you just don't know where you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, only one thing worse. On the Stratocaster, where they have the button in the middle of the volume,
Oh, yeah.
that switches in a boost,
I've never had one.
and you don't know where you
Yeah,
are.
amazing.
But so, what's your impression of that? How does it feel compared to yours?
It feels the same. It feels... Actually, to tell you the truth, I think yours feels hotter
Okay.
than mine does. There's a lot of on the note, And the pickups are really doing their job. Now, one thing that Bob didn't mention on these guitars, which is really significant, is they're actually routed out. They're actually hollow. And what I'm kicking myself, I should have brought along. I've got the unbelievable thing. I've got an original Nightbird body that's not finished.
What we can do, I think you did send me a picture, but we can just drop the picture.
We can drop it in, okay.
This,
And on the body blank that I've got, which I'm going to turn into a new custom Nightbird style, I think we're going to call it a seabird, because living in East Anglia as we do. And what's really interesting is that you can see in the body blank that I've got how complex the chambers are in here. There's really a lot of fresh air inside the guitar, which is very unusual, you know. And of course, this is a direct derivation from Guild's Bluesbird and the original Aristocrat, which appeared to be solid body, but were actually hollow body, and they were trying to get in control of the
and which we're going to come to shortly.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it. And then Bob was on the way to the electronics cover. Now you can't see very well because we haven't taken them off, but what's incredible is that these are tortoiseshell, both of them. So they have tortoiseshell pick guards, bound
about 9 times.
Very old school, very Guild, and then tortoiseshell electronics covers. You gotta love it. It's just one of those little details.
It's a lovely little detail. It's a private joke.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely. Hey, okay. So they're definitely, that sounds, in your hands, that sounds really hot. I haven't heard anybody else play that for forever.
Yeah, it's got real attack, doesn't it?
And they are, again, what I said at the head of this about something about Guild guitars, how they kind of feel just really well, like maybe a little better made. And these ones, so these are 80s guitars, but for modern guitars, these feel better made than their peers.
Yeah, you know what? They were just way ahead of the game with all the features on this that have become standard in years since. But they were revolutionary in this. But you know what? For me, and I'm an acoustic player. You know, when I'm making money, I'm playing classical guitar. What I love about these guitars is how many real punchy, high output, EMG based solid bodies can you play a dissonant chord on and it holds its voice. It's so pure, and it's as if Guild has managed in these guitars to stay true to their jazz roots. Yeah,
really balanced.
It really is.
So, how long did it take you to find yours?
Oh, I looked for quite a long time, actually.
How long?
Probably more than a year.
It took me 13.
Oh, 13. No, I started looking seriously, and I found it. It was just on eBay, and it was a guy in Bristol, a retired pilot. And he'd bought it 6 months after new, in Chicago, and he carried it all around the world with him, but he never played it. And he had some other beautiful guitars as well, which he sold in the Netherlands. But
that's obvious. I mean, this has not been played.
No
fretware.
No. One little thing worth mentioning is got very high quality hardware.
Yeah.
These are Muller engineering hardware, and they're beautifully made, both gold plated in this case, but there's a great precision about the tailpiece and the bridge here, which is just lovely.
They are.
Yeah.
So very quickly, my story about that is I used to rehearse at a studio in South London under the railway arch bridges, and one of the guys who was kind of engineer and general factotum at that place, a guy called Jerry, very nice man, he had one of these. It was stripped, a bit like Mark Bolan's guitar, stripped, so it was kind of natural wood colour. And one night, I don't know, I broke a guitar or something. He lent it to me for a rehearsal session. And at the end of the session, I said, Jerry, please sell me this guitar. It's beautiful. And he wouldn't, quite rightly. And every 6 months or so, I kind of said, Jerry, how about the guitar? No. And then he moved back to New Zealand, and it was gone. And then 13 years later, a friend of mine said, there's one in Loot magazine.
Oh, no.
Classified magazine.
Yeah.
So I phoned the guy up, and he was just about to go to see his parents for Christmas, and he said, well, I'm not in London, but I'll come back. I said, please don't sell it to anyone else until you come back on Tuesday. Went down and bought it. and
Lovely.
it's been loved ever since.
Okay, this is that rare thing, an American production model classical guitar. And Guild always built classical guitars. You know, I mentioned earlier on that a lot of the original workers from with Guild in New York and then subsequently New Jersey and subsequently Rhode Island came from Puerto Rico, from Argentina, from Italy, from Spain, and they brought with them traditions of acoustic building, which they translated into the electric guitars. There's no doubt about it. There was a principal maker who designed this guitar. His name was Carlo Greco, and his own electric guitars are extraordinary. They look like the pearly king and queen in London, but he was a wonderful maker, and he built proper classical guitars. The thing is with classical guitar, you can't look. I mean, you look at this, and it could be, you know, a 50-pound plywood cutout.
Yeah, charity shop job.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and in fact, it's bear claw spruce, beautifully quarter sawn, Brazilian rosewood bridge, solid mahogany back and sides, which is great, which you can't see, you know. But what really gives it away is the quality of the woodwork inside, and I can't show you that, but I can tell you that whoever built this guitar, and it was well after Carlo Greco had died, because this is a 1988 classical, or 1986, sorry, 1986. They took enormous care over the way the strutting was done. This has the traditional fan struts and a bass bar running that way underneath, and each of the struts is scalloped down to nothing at the end. It's absolutely perfect and really nice. So I got this guitar to show on this show because I thought I knew I was going to be talking about Guild. You know, even if you know only a little bit about Guild, you know about their electric guitars and probably some of their acoustics, like the big jumbos, 12 strings that Tim Buckley and people played. But hardly anybody knows about the classicals, and they're so beautiful. I really thought it was worth doing it. When I got this out of the case, and it wasn't an expensive guitar, I only got it a couple of weeks ago, it just sounds like a proper classical guitar. It's beautiful, and $500 US. So,
well, and you are a proper classical guitarist, so let's have you.
Okay, so I'll just play you a little piece out of Passport to Play Guitar. This is out of 3.
Whoa! An intonation in tune that high.
No kidding. On top A.
Fantastic.
Yeah, really good.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. That was delightful. Absolutely
Thank
delightful.
you.
So, as you say, unusual. I mean, Gibson too made classical guitars all the way through.
Yeah.
But again, they're just unsung at all.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, and a lot of the Gibson ones were low-end guitars.
Yes.
Whereas these went right up to hand-built.
Right.
And they were called the Mark series of guitars, like MK, and they had a Mark 1, a Mark 2, and such on, up to about Mark 8, I think.
Okay.
Was a top. This is a Mark 3, and so it's the first of the better level production models. And Mark, by the way, was Alfred Dronch's son.
Mark Dronch.
Yeah, that's right. So they were named after him. But there was also, you know, you will have heard of the great scientist Dr. Kasha, who worked with Gibson in designing an outlandish shaped bridge which went from very wide to very narrow, and other things, hollowed out headstocks with lead weights in them and things. Kasha was a real revolutionary. Well, before he worked with Gibson, typically he worked with Guild. And I've often wondered, the Gibson guitars are often called Mark, aren't
They're
they?
called Mark.
Yeah, that's right. And so I've wondered if Kasha took the idea of the Mark and took it to Gibson. I don't know that. That's pure conjecture.
Probably.
But the point is, it's a beautifully designed classical guitar. It sounds good all over. It's a joy to play. You know how you pick up, especially here I've been sitting playing electrics for the last little while, and you pick it up and you try and play classical, and it feels like, you know, it's really awkward. And this one doesn't. It just is a beautiful guitar to play. The neck profile's perfect. So there you go, Guild classical guitar.
And to complement it, a slightly odd man out but an ugly duckling. This is my 1958 Guild M75 Aristocrat. This is the thing I mentioned earlier. France P90 pickups again. The colours aren't quite the same, so I should think they're not matching. This is a Frankenstein guitar. I think it's had a neck break. I think it's had a headstock break. A heel break and a headstock break. The wood around the pickup selector switch is slightly split. So it's a bit, I've had to replace the wooden bridge myself, so it's a bit of a Frankenstein. But as I mentioned, I won't do a demonstration of it now, but this guitar sounds great when you put it through an amp just on the edge, and you sort of stroke the strings, and you can really get kind of a zing and a bite to it.
Yeah.
It's lovely. I mean, I don't record much, but if I recorded more, I think this would get a lot of work.
Isn't it interesting? Because, you know, we've talked already about how Guild were responsive to markets. Well, one of the first times I ever saw a picture of this guitar, I didn't see him playing it actually, was John Lee Hooker. And there's a picture of him playing an Aristocrat. And I thought, God, that's really interesting, you know. So Guild were looking at the blues market as well, you know, in the late 50s. And here we are, you know, with you talking about a blues player's expression.
Yeah. Now, this guitar is pretty much entirely hollow. I mean, it must, I think, be somehow reinforced here because of the pressure, but I'm not sure what. But it's very, very hollow. It's extremely light. Lots of nice attention to detail for the manufacturer again, apart from the fact it's had a pretty war-strong life. But there you go. But I thought I'd bring it along because it's another interesting one, just to kind of wrap up our showing of Guilds. We've got two more guitars finally to cap this video off. So let's move on briefly to those. To cap this video off, we've got two acoustics. One is from 1964, and it's a Guild Economy M20. Don't be put off by the Fishman pickup across the sound hole. That's just a visitor. But this guitar, incredibly light, all mahogany. Yeah. A real little sort of sit on the porch blues
There's
type
the
guitar.
import heads again.
Sorry?
There's the import heads again.
Imports.
Yeah.
Tuning pegs and stuff. Take him off there.
Oh yeah, doesn't look good. Yeah.
And I mean, you know, very simple adornments.
Yeah.
The previous owner put a hole in the side of it for an electric pickup, which is why I've just.
Looks like he hung his washing on it.
Well, it's a big thing, isn't it? But you know, apart from that, the guitar's original,
Brazilian bridge though.
Clean Brazilian bridge, and it plays nice. And it's got a really sweet little voice.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Can I just play a bit on this?
Yeah.
One? Okay, so you know, I love these smaller bodied acoustics. You know, they're just really balanced under the fingers, kind of like a classical guitar. And you know, I play you know, a few things with this. You will have noticed with that Travis style. Take another chorus of that.
Sounds great.
It's just sweet.
Very sweet, very close, very intimate guitar.
Yep, yeah, it is. Yeah.
Now, this guitar is from 1972. It's a Guild D25M, subtitled Bluegrass. So it's a dreadnought size guitar, but it's a mahogany top, all mahogany really, and then the mahogany top is finished with a slightly yellow dye to give it this kind of golden orange thing. The reason I bought this guitar was I needed a 6-string guitar when I was about 17, 18 as a student. This was my second acoustic guitar. It was in a shop called the Fender Soundhouse in Tottenham Court Road. We all used to call it the Fender Shit House because it didn't have very good stock. And that was in the days when Telecaster Customs and Telecaster Deluxes had just come into the market and nobody liked them. So how the world has turned. Anyway, they had this guitar second hand with a few dings in it, but pretty good. And Cat Stevens was in the shop and he was after it, and I just put my £117 down before he did and got it. But the real reason I was enamoured by this guitar was it was the closest thing I could find at the time, and for 35 years later, to the guitar that was on the cover of Brighter Later by Nick Drake, who I adore, until I found this one, which is the guitar that's on the cover. Now, he never played it. It was borrowed, I think, from Eric Clapton, who was in an adjacent studio that day for a photo shoot. So he never played it. He played completely different guitars, often classical guitars. So it's a complete myth, but I just wanted one for the sake of it. This has a beautiful, intimate tone. This is quite different. This is a bit of a basher. it's a basher. I have to say, it's not a bluegrass guitar. The bluegrass guitar for me is a Martin D28 with 400 foot thick strings and a guy beating it to hell and back. This is much gentler. It's also got a fantastic action, really good neck, and so you can play quick on it too. You know. But it doesn't get much airtime. But if I just knock out some chords, you could just knock out a little lead on it.
Yeah.
Just in G kind of thing. They work quite well together, but that's a couple of Guild acoustics. Guild are well known for their acoustics, and we haven't featured any of their big 12 strings and stuff like that today. We've mainly concentrated on the jazz boxes and the electrics. But altogether, we've been through, I'm trying to count them now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I think we've got 13 or 14 Guilds here altogether. So pretty comprehensive tour d'horizon. Hope you've enjoyed it. We have to stop now because the battery on the recording equipment is shrieking at me that it's going to run out. Now, my doghouse equipped Ramon, my equerry for the day. Ramon, have I forgotten anything? I haven't forgotten a thing. Except to say once again, right, thank you to my guest Tim Pells. It's been delightful to meet you. I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, really
you know, given that we had met on the phone but not physically before today. It's been a joy, and we're probably going to keep playing all afternoon or something. I don't know. But anyway, and a quick plug for Tim and his book, of which this is volume 2.
That's volume 2. Volume 3 is written but not published. And what's distinct about that? It's written for classical guitar, but works perfectly well for acoustic. It's all in notation and tab, and each piece features a country or a culture or a musical style. So rather than having just a whole list of pieces, there's a text about the style. For example, there's some about reggae, about Latin jazz, about flamenco music, a whole mishmash of things that are fun to learn. And everything comes with an audio file on it, of course.
Fantastic.
So you can play along with the accompaniment, or you can just play along with the
It sounds about idiot-proof enough for me. I think I might have a go myself.
Yeah, well, see,
that's
published by
fantastic.
Schott, so it's Beethoven's publisher.
Oh,
So there you go.
la-di-da.
I know.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
In closing, I want to do one final thing. I just want to give a shout out to a little music shop on the Kilburn High Road in London called Fokies, where recently I had to drop in because I needed a quick repair done on a jack socket on one of my guitars. And they were really great. They were really helpful. They were really quick. They were very keenly priced. Just really nice people, bloody helpful. So shout out for Fokies. I'll put up a super with some details. If you are in kind of northwest London and you need a helpful music store, it's a really nice place to go, and it's right next to Kilburn Tube Station, so you can even get there in a jiffy. Anyway, enough of the commercial break. From me, and on behalf of my doghouse chum, it's goodbye from
Me.
And it's goodbye from me, Bob, and once again,
And from
thank you,
me.
Tim.
Thank you.
Have a good day.